Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. The whole gang's here. Ginger and Jade. I just can't even do a video without these two wanting to be in it. Anytime they see me bring out the tripod, both of them come running. They're very smart dogs. And for those of you who've been on my channel for a while, you'll notice I'm in a different location. This may be part of the reason they're wanting to be up here too. I'm actually in a chair that I call the dog's chair. This is the first recliner that I bought after I moved into this house. And I got it for $40 at the thrift store. And I used it for a long time until I bought that new one over there that I sit in all the time. And I actually bought that one with my stimulus money, part of my stimulus money. But anyway, we're sitting in this location. I just thought I would try a different background. It's kind of cluttered looking. I know there's DVDs around me and that little kitty cat thing back there, that's actually a robot cat that I bought from Avon many years ago. It does still work, but not completely, because you're supposed to be able to pet it. And it makes noises, its tail moves, its eyes light up, and I think its nose lights up too. But it still works, but not as good. But I wanted to tell you, I was curious about how much Ginger weighed, so I went and weighed her because I noticed that she's been packing on a few pounds since I've had her. Y'all ain't gonna believe it. She weighs 8.2 pounds. That's pretty good for a Chihuahua. So let me show you. She's looking good. So that's about where I want to keep her at. So I was feeding her more than a Chihuahua's ration because I was trying to get her to bulk up a little bit. So now I'm going to cut back on her food, and she's still going to eat twice a day, but I'm not going to give her as much food. That's what I've had to do for Jade because Jade's actually overweight, extremely overweight. Well, not extremely. She's probably about 4 or 5 pounds overweight. She needs to be smaller than she is. But anyway, Ginger's a big girl now. Look at her. Yes, she is. She's 8 pounds, 0.2. Okay, so I'm going to let you guys down there. Now listen, you guys can be up here, but you got to behave yourself, okay? You won't be able to see them in this video, but they're still going to be up here with me. And in this video today that I'm doing for you, I'm going to tell you some foods that you can freeze. Now, some of you will be surprised because I was when I found out about this. A lot of these foods on this list that I'm going to be reading to you, I haven't frozen them myself. Some of them I have. A lot of them I haven't tried yet, so I can't really tell you how good it does or does not work. Just the ones that I did try. And in the future, I will be doing some videos on some of the food that I freeze, showing you how that I put it up my freezer for pantry storage. But this one right here, I just did some research. I Googled a lot of stuff. I went online. I watched a lot of videos. And I researched foods that you could freeze. For those of you who are interested in storing up, in freezing foods that don't have shelf life that you can put in your freezer so that you can have them a little longer. And I didn't really count how many I got, but I do have a list here. And those of you that watched the video where I did the eggs, you know that if it's in a Ziploc bag, I always put a little straw in there and to pull the air out. And I still do that when I freeze a lot of stuff. Okay, and the first thing that I have on this list is butter. And it says you can freeze it for up to 4 months. Now, I do freeze my butter. And let me tell you, I have butter in there that I've had in there longer than 4 months. And I take it out and use it all the time. And I never noticed anything different about the taste. It still tastes good to me. It doesn't seem to affect the recipes. So maybe these are just kind of a basic guideline for you to go by. And I think a lot of it depends on what temperature you keep it in your freezer. If it's extremely cold frozen or just at a regular freeze, some things don't freeze in your freezer rock hard. They just freeze. And that may be what this is. The next thing is milk, and I do freeze milk. I always divide it into smaller portions. I either put it in Ziploc bags or I put it in jars. Leave a little bit of extra room for it to expand when you freeze it. And for milk, it said that you can keep it up to 6 weeks. And I have kept my milk longer than 6 weeks. Actually, all these things on here that I'm reading to you, if it's something that I froze, I'm guaranteeing you I probably kept it longer than the amount of time that they say you can keep it. And every time I take it out and use it, I don't never notice anything bad with it. Sour cream and cottage cheeses. This cottage cheeses says you can keep it 3 to 6 months, and the sour cream, it says you can keep it for 2 months. And the same thing on yogurt. You can freeze yogurt for 2 months. Now, I have never froze cottage cheese, sour cream, or yogurt, but I may try doing that on the sour cream because there's a lot of times when I have a recipe that I want to make and I don't even have any sour cream, which means a trip to the store. If I could buy it ahead of time and keep it in the freezer and thaw it out and use it, that would save me a few miles on my car to use it. And the next thing is cheese. And I've read this on several different places. It said when you keep cheese, you have to separate it. You either have to grate it into small pieces or slice it. And I don't know why, that's just what it said. And when I do mine, I grate it up because, like, I get a big block of that 2 or 3 pound block of cheese from the food pantry. I always grate that up and freeze it, and I put a little bit of cornstarch in there. Not cornstarch, but cornmeal in there with it to keep it, to keep it separated. Now, I have heard some people say that when you buy that cheese already grated in the bag, it's got wood in it. That's not what it is. Chances are really good that it's cornmeal that they put in there with it to kind of maybe act as a preservative, but it also keeps your cheese from clumping up. And according to this, you can freeze it indefinitely. And I know that's true. I have cheese that I've had in my ice box for years. And I did the video on the eggs up to a year. Y'all know how that goes because in the video I told you that was part of the reason I was freezing it was because you're supposed to be able to use it for up to a year. Avocados. Now, I haven't tried this yet, so I don't know. It does say you have to cut it up into small pieces because if you freeze it whole, supposedly it turns black and mushy. But if you chop it up in little pieces and rub it with lemon juice, you can keep it for 4 to 6 months. Now, I guess if you're going to chop it up in pieces, you're going to be using it in a recipe like guacamole or putting it on tacos or maybe mashing it up to make avocado toast, something like that. And green onions, of course, y'all know I do freeze my green onions. I did a video or a short video on that showing how I do my green onions. According to the thing that I found, you can keep them for 6 months. And once again, I have green onions in my ice box that I've had in there for a lot longer than 6 months, and they're still good. Mashed potatoes. Now, this is what I haven't tried, and I'm curious to try this. I definitely want to try to do this. It says after you mix them up, like if you serve them for dinner that night and you don't eat them all and you want to freeze them. My mama used to make potato cakes out of our mashed potatoes. But anyway, if you want to freeze them, take an ice cream scoop and scoop it on a parchment paper to freeze it, and then you take it off and put the little globs of mashed potato in a bag, and you're supposed to be able to keep it for up to 2 months. Like I said, I've never tried that, so I can't vouch for if that works or not. Tomatoes you can freeze. You slice them up or use them whole, and you can keep them for a year. I do have some right now that I got off my garden. They are in the freezer. I have not thawed any of them out yet to use them, so I can't really tell you. My plans are to thaw them out and use them in chili or soup, or maybe a casserole. And when I do, I'll let you know how that worked out. Grapes you can freeze, and you're supposed to be able to keep them for up to a year. I haven't done grapes yet either. And any of the stuff that I'm listing, if some of y'all have frozen it and had pretty good luck with it, please leave in the comments down there the item that you froze and what happened to it, if it was good or bad, so that other people that might want to try it can read and find out about it. Now, bananas I have froze, and it says that you can peel them or don't peel them. And I usually don't peel mine. When they turn black, I just throw them in a Ziploc bag and freeze them. You're supposed to be able to keep them for 12 months. and I use mine after I freeze them to make banana bread. Pre-made apple pie filling. Now this is not, well, I guess it could work for canned apple pie. If you made a small batch recipe and you didn't use all the apple pie filling in the can, I guess you could freeze what was left. But this is basically for homemade apple pie filling. Like if you made a batch and you made one pie and you still had filling left and it wouldn't fit in the crust, you can freeze it. And it says you can keep it for 3 to 4 months. Rice cooked. After you cooked it, if you have leftover rice, you can freeze that. And what it said was when you get ready to thaw it out, you add a little water to it to thaw it out. And you should be able to keep it for 2 to 3 months. I haven't tried that one yet. Oh, no, wait, I take that back. I have to. I did freeze some rice because I made a big batch of it and froze it to use in the dog's food. And it worked fine. I can't remember if I added water to it or not because basically I thawed it out and then I just threw it in their dog food. And I didn't have any problems with it. It seemed like it worked out pretty good. Homemade cookie dough. 2 months. And I haven't tested that. I do have cookie dough in my freezer, but it is store-bought cookie roll. Those Pillsbury cookie dough that's in the roll, I have some of those in my freezer. And I know they've been in there longer than 2 months. They've been in there probably 3 years. Pre-made waffles or pancakes. 3 months. And I have did that, and it works out great. I make a batch of them on my little waffle maker that I bought and throw them in a Ziploc bag. I put chocolate chips in them or blueberries or whatever I want in there, cranberries, raisins. Make a batch of them up, throw them in a Ziploc bag, and then when I want them, I pop them in the toaster. Heat them up. You can also put them in the microwave. That would work too. Now, pasta. Cooked pasta. If you're going to freeze pasta, it has to be al dente, which is where it's cooked but not soft. It's like kind of rubbery, still thick, still hard. You have to have it al dente because if you cook it all the way and mush freeze it, when you thaw it out, it completely falls to pieces and mush. You can keep it up to 3 months if you freeze it al dente after you've cooked it. Family pack of meats. Now, I've bought many bulk packages of chicken and hamburger meat and divided it into portions and froze that. And this says that you can keep, well, it doesn't, I forgot to write on here how long you can keep it frozen. But I know that I've got some in my freezer right now that I've had in there for 3 years. And I also got some that was given to me from the food bank that was frozen when I got it. Have no idea how long it was frozen before I got it, and it's still in there. And I will be doing a video showing you how I do hamburger meat. Now, I did show you one time on chicken. I think I did a video where I showed you how I did chicken. If I didn't, I will do one. Show you how I put my chicken up to freeze. Garlic. It says that you must, okay, I'm having trouble reading my own handwriting. You grind it up in the food processor with water, and you can freeze it, and it should last 6 months. Now, I haven't done that because I usually buy a jar of minced garlic at the Dollar Tree that I use in my recipes. I hardly ever buy fresh garlic and chop it up or freeze it or anything. I have bought it before and used it, but it's a whole lot simpler just to buy it already chopped up in a jar. Celery. It says chop it finely, 1 cup at a time in baggies, and it will last you 12 to 18 months. Now, that's one that I haven't tried. I may try that in the future. Right now, I'm not eating celery because I can't chew it with my teeth. I could do this, and you could take it out and use it in soups and casseroles, stews, stuff like that, I'm sure. Meatloaf, if you put celery in your meatloaf. Lemons, limes, oranges, tangerines, any of your citrus fruits. It says you can slice them up, take a paper towel, pat them dry, get all the moisture off them. You don't want any crystals, water crystals. So you pat them dry to get the moisture off, and you can keep them up to a year. That's pretty good. I take my lemons and I slice them, then I chop them into quarters, 4 slices off one. And I use that like when I'm having tea or even just ice water. Take out a frozen orange or lemon or lime or whatever and throw it in water or tea and have it like that. Yeast. If you have yeast, if you open it, you can keep it for 6 months. But if you put yeast in your ice box that you've never opened, you're supposed to be able to keep it for 2 years. I have never tried this. I don't use yeast very often at all because I don't have any luck with it. You have to have the temperature of the water just right for the rising effect, and I always either get the water too cold or too hot, and when I make bread, it's flat. It doesn't do anything. Lunch meats, you're supposed to be able to freeze them 1 to 2 months. I guarantee you, I've had frozen lunch meat that I've kept a lot longer than that. In fact, I got lunch meat one time that was frozen from the food bank. Once again, I have no idea how long it was frozen before they gave it to me, and I put it in my ice box and left it in there for quite some time before I took it out. Soups. Homemade soups, I'm assuming. I guess if you open up a can of soup and you eat part of it and you don't finish it, and you know you're not going to come back in a couple of days and eat it, you could freeze that. Put it in a jar and leave a little extra space at the top for expansion. You're supposed to be able to keep it for 2 to 3 months. And food scraps, bones, anything like that. I like to save that kind of stuff. Like if I boil a chicken, I take the grizzle and the fat and the skin off it, and I put it in a Ziploc bag, and I use it to put in the dog's food when I make it. I also, when I boil a chicken, I drain that broth off, and I freeze that, and I use that in the dog's food. Anytime you have food scraps, like if you're cleaning an apple, save the skins, anything like that, you can freeze it up, and you can use it in recipes for vegetable broth, where you put it all in a pot and you cook it, and then you strain it and you get the juice off it, and you have a vegetable broth. The bones you boil to get beef broth or blood broth or whatever. So save your bones and your scraps. I don't know if I told you this or not, and I probably told you wrong if I did. 12 months. I might have said 2 months. There's a 1 in front of it. You can keep it up to a year and then take it out and use it. So that's what I found. Like I said, I did some research on this. I Googled a lot of things. I watched a lot of YouTube videos, and a lot of people had lots of different ways of doing it. I wrote down the ones that I thought would apply to me when I got ready to freeze things, and that's what I'm reading off to you here is the stuff the way that I would do it if I was going to freeze it. And I have been freezing quite a bit of stuff here lately. So thank you guys very much for coming to our video. I have one dog still up with me, my old faithful friend Ginger. She's still hanging in there. Thank you guys for coming to visit with us. We appreciate you so very much. And y'all come back and see us any old time. Bye for this one.